Hello, welcome to the biologist. So today we are going to discuss about Huntington's disease. So, so today we are going to discuss about Huntington disease. So let's start this. So, what is Huntington disease? It is a progressive neurological neurological disorder, which is which is characterized by degeneration of nerve in the brain, which ultimately leads to motor, cognitive, and psychiatric symptoms. Okay, so Huntington disease, we came to know that it is a progressive neurological disorder. It is a progressive neurological disorder which is characterized by degeneration of nerve in the brain and which leads to motor, cognitive, and psychiatric symptoms. So, what is this Huntington disease and how does this develop? So, Huntington's disease, we will refer to as it as HD, not high definition, right? It is an autosomal dominant pattern disease. So it is a genetic disorder. So what happens in autosomal dominant pattern diseases? So the person in autosomal dominant pattern person has 50% chance of inheriting the disease causing gene mutation gene mutation from an affected parent. So what happens? Autosomal dominant pattern diseases, person has 50% chance of inheriting the disease causing gene mutation from an affected parent. So what is the prevalence? Let's learn about the prevalence of Huntington disease, or you can say HD. So it is found in 5 to 10 cases per 1 lakh people. And when does it manifest, or when does it appears in our life? So Huntington disease HD typically manifest in adulthood with the average age onset with the average age onset ranging from ranging from 30 to 50 years. So this is the normally age when Huntington disease appears in our life. So Huntington disease affects both men and women. Okay, and 5 to 10% cases was found to be in childhood or adolescence. Okay, so now let's learn about the genetics. That is the most important part. Let's learn about the genetics of Huntington disease. The genetic mutation responsible for Huntington disease occurs on HTT gene located on chromosome 4. So there is an HTT gene which is located on chromosome 4 where the mutation occurs. Okay. This gene provides instruction to make a protein called Huntingtin, okay, which is of 350 kilodaltons. Okay, so HTT gene makes a protein called Huntingtin, which is of 350 kilodaltons, and the mutation occurs in this particular gene. Which results in the disease of Huntington. Let's learn more about this. In the mutated gene, mutated HTT gene, obviously, in the mutated HTT gene, there is an expansion of repeating DNA sequence called CAG trinucleotide. So in the HTT gene, there are DNA sequences are present where there is a repetition of CAG trinucleotide. So what is a CAG? Cysteine, adenine and guanosine. So So there is a repetition of this trinucleotide in HTT mutated gene. Mutated HTT gene. Okay. So what is present in normal HTT gene? Normal HTT gene. Okay. In normal HTT genes have 10 to 35 CAG trinucleotide repeats, while mutated genes associated with Huntington disease have 36 or more CAG repeats. So we can say that there is a substantial increase of CAG trinucleotide repeats in the diseased gene, whereas there is only present 10 to 35 CAG trinucleotides in normal HTT genes. Huntington disease is caused by mutation in the HTT gene, which is specifically, now we go some into specific, in chromosome 4 at position 16 at the young. So we can write it as HTT gene is located in 4p16. So there is a mutation in the HTT gene at 4p16. P is the short arm of the chromosome. Okay. So in summary, what happens? The genetic mutation in the HTT gene involves an expanded CAG trinucleotide repeats leads to an abnormal version of the Huntington protein, or Huntington protein, we say Huntington protein, that accumulates and damages nerve cells. So this is a summary, okay, of the genetics of Huntington disease, and we talked about in detail how the disease occurs and which gene the mutation occurs. The mutation occurs in the HTT gene, which is located in the 4p16, that is chromosome 4, in the short arm in the short arm of chromosome 4 at the position 16, right? So let's move on to the symptoms. Symptoms. So what are the symptoms? Motor symptoms. First talk about the motor symptoms. Motor symptoms. First is chorea. Second is dystonia. Third one is rigidity. Fourth one is bradykinesia. So what does this bradykinesia means? Problems with coordination, balance, which can lead to an increased risk of falls. Okay, so that is bradykinesia. Balance problems with balance and coordination. Which increases the risk of fall. Okay, let's move on to cognitive symptoms. Cognitive symptoms. So what are the cognitive symptoms? That is impaired executive function, second one is impaired short-term memory, and difficulties while learning, new information. Right. So another one is there of cognitive function, that is reduced attention span. And there are also psychiatric symptoms. So it is general psychiatric symptoms such as depression. Second one is anxiety. And today's favorite term, stress. These are all the favorite terms of today. So now let's talk about the diagnosis. So diagnosis generally happens by clinical evaluation of family history, by genetic testing, but there is something important to know about this disease. It is important to note that genetic testing for Huntington's disease is highly sensitive and specific. And what does that mean? That means it can accurately confirm or rule out the presence of the mutated gene. However, this line is very much important. However, the test cannot predict the age at which the symptoms will show. Symptoms onset or symptoms will show. Or the severity or progression. This is something very much important to know. Okay, so now let's move on to the treatment. Different types of therapy: physical therapy, speech, and occupational therapy. Occupational therapy can be done, and little bit of lifestyle modifications. Okay. So this was all about Huntington disease. If you want to see it in chromosome 4, how it looks like, so it looks like this. Chromosome 4 looks like this, and it is in the short arm, and it will be somewhere here. And it will be 4p16 where the STT gene is present, and when the mutation occurs, it results into the mutation occurs and it results in Huntington disease. Right, this was all about it. Thank you. Please like, share and subscribe my channel. Bye bye.